Well, greetings everyone. This past month has been not only a busy month, I think we take that for granted at this point, but an exceedingly significant month for the Theosophical Society and for our work. A couple of really important things happened during the course of the month. With this particular video blog, if you have never watched one before, I would encourage you to watch this one and to share it with other members, because I think it's quite important, some of the things that you'll be hearing during the course of this blog. So check it out and send it along, please. The month of March began with a visit to the Adyar campus by the President of India, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. It had been scheduled, we didn't actually know his exact timing for coming, but back in November we had spoken with the head of the Women's Indian Association, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. The Women's Indian Association was founded by Annie Besant, among others, and the idea for it was hatched at our Theosophical Society campus in Adyar. So that's something that took place March 3rd. Actually, we only had 3 weeks notice that the meeting was going to occur. So it took a great deal of preparation under very intense circumstances. Obviously, a visit from the president isn't a visit from your ordinary dignitary, and it has certain extreme security requirements that go along with it. So our new general manager had been in his position for a little bit over a month when he had to oversee all of the activities involved with this. Something of a trial by fire, but I think Ram Kumar passed with flying colors. He did an amazing job along with the crew of people there at Adyar. So also, the second thing that happened, I was unable to attend the president's visit because of a previous commitment. Back at our general council meeting in December, I had scheduled and called for a meeting for future planning, brainstorming and future planning among members of the general council and other leaders worldwide. That took place in Naarden, and it began on March the 4th. So about 21 people gathered for that, about 13 members of our general council, for a 5-day meeting, which included a symposium that was held for the Dutch members and regional members in that area. It was a highly intensive brainstorming activity, one that really developed into something that I think is quite special and something that will have repercussions throughout the Theosophical Society in years to come. I'm going to give you a chance to listen to the voices of the people who were there, did a lot of brief interviews with them, also give you a chance to meet some of them. I mean, for many of you, it's often nice with these videos to be able to travel around and see what different people are doing in the world. This particular video, I want you to hear from them yourself. So it's going to be something that's very different, something that is, I think, very charged with life for the future of the TS. Very meaningful work was done there, and I allow you to judge for yourself. So as always, I do hope you enjoy. At Adyar, we continued with our cyclone cleanup from Varda, taking out the huge trees that had fallen, but this time there was a greater urgency because the Women's India Association had scheduled its 100th anniversary meeting with the President of India attending. Padma Venkaratan, seen here, the president of the organization, had spoken with us a while back about inviting the president and celebrating their 100th. So Ram Kumar, my newly appointed general manager, seen with his family, experienced a trial by fire of having to deal with every level of security force in India in preparation for this massive event, with only 3 weeks' notice total. He did a wonderful job. The Adyar Theater roof had to be reconstructed, this time on a presidential scale, with fans and lighting and all of the accoutrements of a president. Also, a new structure had to be built for a private bathroom for the president, as well as private sitting area. Those things were built and then later taken away. Also, a direct line to the Delhi headquarters of the nation had to be installed, as well as satellite communications. It was a massive event. Here, the head of the president's security forces even had to be involved. There were rehearsals of coming in with the cars and also going out. Alterations had to be made in the road, so if there was a speedy departure that was required, bomb-sniffing dogs and metal detectors. Because of my previous commitment to attend a meeting in Naarden, I could not be there. I had asked Mr. Sundaram, former General Secretary of India. He spoke to the women of India. On the day of the event, it was a beautiful day. Of the 1,000 or so people that could have possibly sat in the auditorium, in the theater, only 340 were allowed because of security requirements. But it was a glorious day. The president celebrated the memory of Annie Besant. So President Pranab Mukherjee, he had an opportunity to speak to the crowd. He also had an opportunity to remember Annie Besant and the great work that she did. And in closing, he bowed in homage to her memory. At the beginning of March, it was on to the International Theosophical Centre, the ITC in Naarden, for a meeting that I had asked to convene back at our last General Secretary's General Council meeting. About 20 leaders from all around the world gathered, 13 of our members of the General Council. Naarden is a very special place, and it's very central for many of the people who came. I will share with you some of the impressions of the leaders who came to the ITC meeting.
And I believe that Naarden is a special spiritual center because of its atmosphere, so inspiring and profound, that enhance your internal work, your meditation, your connection with nature and with the higher spirits, so to say.
This is my third visit here, and I just love the place. It's a peaceful, quiet surroundings, wonderful nature. Of course, now when it's not the summertime, it's not so green, but still the singing of the birds and everything here. It's really a wonderful place.
It's one of the best retreat centers that I have visited. At first, when I came here, I thought that it was quite undeveloped, but I realized that it was intended to be that way, and it added to the ambience, the nature of the place. Rather than being like a modern paved place, it was very natural.
Well, the ITC in Naarden was donated to the TS in 1925. Incidentally, actually, more or less at the same time, even in a few months' time, when Crotona was created, as well as the manor in Australia. So that's already interesting to see in our history. It was donated to Annie Besant by a wealthy widow. In those days, in particular, for young people to be trained in ceremonial work. The center is considered to be the European home of the TS. It's one of the 3 international theosophical centers in the world. Naarden for the Northern Hemisphere originally, the manor for the Southern Hemisphere, and Adyar for the whole world. And in those days, in the 1920s, it was connected by Leadbeater through placing of magnified stones in these 3 different centers.
The ITC campus is composed of a number of buildings, a mixture of old and new, all of them very, very well maintained and very forward-looking. Besant Hall, which houses the library, Crystal House, Arundel House. Most of our meetings took place in Ashrama, which is one of the buildings also there on the campus. Tables were set up, and we met most of the days. We had one day where we did, in fact, meet in Crystal House. You'll get a chance to see some of that. Spring was in the air, and it was just beginning, but we were sitting indoors while it rained and while it was cold outside, working in the morning and on into the evening on most days. It was a beautiful meeting. Many, many thoughts were allowed to be shared. Give you a chance to hear some of the impressions of the folks involved in that. Also, a special meeting was scheduled because we had this opportunity with so many leaders from the theosophical world in one place to have a special meeting of the a symposium for the Dutch members and members who came from as far away as Belgium. That symposium took place the second day we were there and lasted for the entire day. The Master of Ceremonies was former Dutch General Secretary Els Renneker, also a member of our General Council in India, and it was held in the beautiful Besant Hall. A variety of people presented, although everybody attending the meeting, of course, could not present. We did have good representation. Vic Hao Chin from the Philippines, Isis Resende from Brazil, Angeles Torra Buron from Spain, Esteban Languaz from Argentina, Michiel Haas from right there at the ITC. I got a chance to talk. We also had Jenny Baker from the UK and the newly elected General Secretary from India, Pradeep Gohil. Bas Harp talked about young theosophists, and Patrizia Calvi spoke about from the Italian section. We had questions and answers, and it all ended with a big Brazilian-style group hug. Our meeting fell during International Women's Day, so here's a photo of that. And also my wife Lily was very happy to receive from Vic Hao Chin a donation for the Vocational Training Center in India at Adyar. We also had a chance for the ITC Council to meet, so we squeezed every possible moment. Our last day was spent in Crystal House during meetings there. Throughout the meeting, there was a very wonderful exchange that took place throughout. Every idea was considered and expanded by all of those around the table. It was a wonderful example of what it really means to cooperatively work together. There was no effort on anyone's part to be the shining light in the room. It was all about the work, the idea, the vision, and shaping the mission that would fuel the implementation of these things into the future.
Looking back at the last few days, I think that is probably in our history one of the highlights of the history of the center, serving as a host for members of the General Council, which normally takes place in Adyar. To my knowledge, we have never had a meeting like this before, at least not the last 40 years, if I remember correctly.
I've always believed that if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And here, for the first time, we were doing some very good strategic planning that is very much required in any organization, whether it is business or whether it is a social organization.
Well, we have been here to do brainstorming and planning about the future of the TS. It is something which I consider very important, because if we don't plan, then circumstances will push us to go where we'll be going. And hence, instead of allowing circumstances to just push us right and left, we better chart the path we'd like to take. And whether we'll fully succeed or not is another matter, but at least we planned it and we tried our best to reach it.
Well, we've been intensively discussing the work of the TS, and I think that this has been a very important meeting for us, because each of us in our own countries have been thinking about what to do, how to develop our activities, how to get more members, and what kinds of programs to have, etc.
It gives the feel of a ship that was docked for some time, and the ship is now heading for the ocean.
I see that it has a great future and that it has enormous possibilities of development.
I truly believe that the Theosophical movement is among the very few to offer really a certain kind of depth to what it actually says and to what it wishes to stand for. A profound ethical content that we have, that the ethical component is actually the logical outcome of the whole reasoning where Theosophy stands for.
In most of the meetings like this, it happens that a few people speak and the rest don't. But here, everyone was speaking. Well, one thing that I see from this is that the Theosophical Society will certainly grow based on this. And the reason it will grow is because there will be focus. Very often, I think there were very capable persons, but the focus on the main issues was not there.
I hope that in the future we would be more outward-going society again, as we used to be in the past. Now, for many years, I think we've been more internal in many ways.
The most important agenda about what TS should do would be to make the TS relevant to the problems of people and the problems of society. Personally, I'm not worried about failure. What is important is what we're going to do, the right thing. And if it's the right thing, we can fail 10 times, but we still do it because it's the right thing.
Since Jim started as president, he tried to implement strategic planning meetings. I think we will inaugurate a new era in the Theosophical Society that is very, very needed, working in a collaborative way, in a peaceful way.
To be honest, I've never been very optimistic about the Theosophical Society reaching the 22nd century, but now I am.
Wow.
I feel very much privileged to have been able to take part in this very, very important meeting of TS. I think these days have been extremely important, and maybe even in the history of the TS, in 100 years' time, people will look back and say, well, that was the moment that the TS changed a lot.
There is some great shift to something which has happened during these days. And the start, it has been a few years, but at some point it must be realized. It will come realized. And I'm really impressed of all the facilitators.
Here, it's been really very positive, and I think there's been changes in Adyar this year, very positive changes in Adyar, and I think that is being reflected with the work that we've done this weekend, and long may it continue.
This wonderful time we spent together was the easy part of the task. The harder one starts tomorrow when we have the duty of putting in concrete actions what we have discussed.
It's been 3 years now since I took on this position as international president. It's gone very, very quickly. Obviously, there have been a number of challenges. There will always be a number of challenges. The biggest challenge up until this point has been to try and get to some sort of point in what we're doing where something like this can become actually a possibility. Until now, really, it has not been. There's been a pattern of leadership in the Theosophical Society that kind of, I think it derives from the broader culture, where you have a hierarchical type of structure, where there is a person at the top, in our case, the president, and from there, all things flow downward. And it's a pattern that has strengths, but it also has some very clear limitations. One of the limitations has been that while we have people who have deep experience and commitment to theosophy in different sections around the world that have composed our General Council, that really it was just a regional voice. And there has been no meaningful cooperative endeavor that has been provided
for these people to come together. Where you have differing points of view, differing people and temperaments, sometimes the hardest thing to establish, we're all working for one thing, but the hardest thing to establish is a setting in which there's a sense that everybody is safe to express what they may think is a lesser idea even. But we have created an atmosphere in just 4 days' time in which it has become very clear that every contribution has value. This is a starting point. The idea that this is even possible. During this time together, we have been able to function as a greater unit. It hasn't been the old thing about the one great leader, the one great mind, and we've been a part of that. And it's a beautiful thing. But the aspect of creating a group that actually does something was what attracted me. I think our experience here and going forward is going to show us that it's not just dreams that we've been doing here. We haven't just been throwing more stuff out into the astral realm, that these are things that will happen. Some of them will happen, some of them may not, but we're going to have demonstrations in front of us of things that have come out of this meeting. So I'm very happy about it.